Welcome to the Lady Landlords podcast, where we empower women to gain financial independence through real estate investing. I'm your host, Becky Nova, founder of Lady Landlords. If you're ready to buy, manage, and grow your real estate portfolio, then let's get started.
We just closed on our 17th door in just 7 years. And today I'm going to be sharing with you those challenges and the 3 top lessons that we learned over these past years. Now listen, I am so proud of the progress that we have made over these years. I never ever thought that I would own one rental. I never even thought I would actually own our own personal home. And now here we are on door number 17. So if you are still looking to get that very first property, or if you are crushing it already and working on scaling your portfolio, these lessons that I'm going to be going through today are those that are going to be able to save you time, money, and even more important, stress. Okay. So lesson number 1 that I want to share with you guys is with that growth always comes new challenges. And I've said this on many episodes, if you are a regular subscriber to our Lady Landlords podcast, if you do follow along with me in the Lady Landlords Facebook group, I always share that I really feel that the number 1 skill that you need as a successful real estate investor is problem solving. Okay. And I'm going to get into what happened a little bit in this situation that makes me feel even more about that. But as I said, real estate to me was not something that we would ever even get into. I still never really had any intention of buying our own first property. To me, I was perfectly happy renting. I thought it was fantastic to be able just to call somebody else and say, there's this problem or this thing needs to be done. And I thought it was absolutely great. I love traveling. Those were my goals, was to be able to do something different in our lives. But about 7 years ago, we ended up buying our first property in New York. Within that, things are expensive. Cost of living is expensive. And really our entire goal was just how do we lower our own cost of living? With that, we started with a duplex, lived in one side and rented out the other. And it was at that very first property where we were actually able to bring in enough income from that one other unit in the building that we had bought, in the 2 units, but we were actually able to cover our living expenses there. That changed the game for me. That was something that really changed that idea that I didn't necessarily need to rely on work, rely on a job to be able just to live. And that was absolutely eye-opening for me. And that was really where we got started. Now, I have made a ton of other episodes here on Lady Landlords, on our YouTube channel, on our podcast, all about how we kind of scaled to this 17. But number 17 for us was actually kind of different. One of the reasons for this was because it was the first intentional single family property that we bought in the United States. And one of the reasons why it was so different was because it was actually for us. This is now a time when we are not living in one of the multifamilies. This is a time when we have now not been house hacking, not been living with our tenants for the past 7 years, but now we're in a place where we actually get to be in our own single family. If you have been a regular listener for a while, you know that we are actually due with our very first baby coming this fall. And one of the reasons that we have been growing this portfolio and scaling and purchasing these rental properties was so that way when we started a family, we could really determine what that looked like. We didn't have to fit baby around 9-to-5 jobs and commute and the week of PTO people get, or even if you do get PTO. My husband never got PTO. So that was something that was really important for us to be able to say our family is going to be able to come first. And what was so great was we were been able to use real estate to set ourselves up. Even sometimes with my husband was surprised that I kept delaying having a child. My husband has been begging for babies for years. I am actually older than he is. And I think he was very surprised that I kept saying no a little bit longer, a little bit longer. And one of the reasons why I continued to put that off was because I wanted to make sure that we had that financial stability from our rental properties So that way, when we did start our family, we could determine what that was going to be able to look like. So what's been interesting, though, is as we've grown from our portfolios, and what's really funny is looking now at door 17, every single time we have grown, we have bought something different. Every single stage of investing has presented a different set of problems than the last ones, right? What I think has been interesting was I wouldn't say that it necessarily gets easier as you scale, but you're better equipped to handle the challenges that are thrown at you. There are things that you can start to anticipate and then therefore start to problem solve before they really become very big problems. Now, when my husband and I first started looking at rental properties 7 years ago, we really, that very first one, we had no idea what we were looking for. We had no idea how to run a deal analysis. I really relied a lot on my lender at that time to help me with numbers. I relied a lot on my realtor to kind of walk me through what I was looking at and those types of things, because I just didn't know. And once again, I had no intention of buying another property. It wasn't until after we had closed on that very first duplex that we said, hey, there's something to this. We should probably do this again. Because of that, now what's interesting is I feel like 17 properties later, my husband and I, when we look through things, when we start looking at properties, there are things that we always check for. And what's interesting is we always kind of go back to things that we ended up having problems with in the past that were like, whoa. Before we go anywhere with this property, the first thing that we're going to do is we are absolutely turning on that heat, because I cannot tell you how many times we've had issues with heat just a few months after we ended up closing. Okay. Most of our properties, oddly enough, we've closed during the summer. So now all of a sudden it's a few months later, we have to turn on the heat, and then all of a sudden there's a problem with it. So it's something that we totally have like PTSD from, and it's one of the very first things that we check. But we go through that, and I totally get why a lot of people that are kind of starting out always look at people that are scaling or have more properties saying like, oh, well, you've already bought properties. You already have all the answers. You have it figured out. But I'm telling you, this game keeps changing. And to be honest, that is what makes this so fun to me. That's what makes this so exciting. And what I feel like has allowed us to continue to grow and scale and be successful in this is our ability to learn how to solve problems quickly. I did an episode here on our podcast a few weeks ago about a huge issue we had with not just the renovations that we've been doing on this 17th door, but also some of the things that have popped up. We moved out of our previous unit, which now we are rehabbing. Should be done by tomorrow, actually, and get that re-rented. We had another tenant moved out, so we actually also flipped that unit. So we had 3 different renovations going on all at the same time. And I shared a few episodes ago that one of our triplexes, which is attached to another owner's triplex, had an issue with its ventilation system, and the gas got cut off. But we came to find out that it was because actually the neighbor had broken through a basement wall and attached his utility systems, his water heaters, his boiler to our house, and then was using our chimney for his ventilation system. Not really kosher there, but that's what happened. Not the current owner, but this happened a couple owners ago. One of the things that really helped from a problem-solving perspective is in that weekend, we had to come up with 10 grand to be able to get that fixed and get gas and hot water turned back on for our tenants. That was something we had to be able to move on, because that was our responsibility as the landlords, because we are the ones that do maintain those mechanical systems. So one, definitely learned, hey, this is why you need that emergency fund. This is why you should not be investing with your very last pennies, and why you really need to have that liquid savings for every single property. But 2, I clearly was going to reach out to our neighbor and make sure that they understood what happened. Now, I had never met that person, never talked to that owner, never had to go through that process, but I had to make a good couple calls to some people to find out through other sources who was the owner of that property. It was owned by an LLC. I had to make sure then to make a couple extra phone calls to figure out who owned that LLC. which is such an interesting idea because I always also promote using your LLCs for your rental properties. And this is sometimes why, to be able to protect who's the owner of that. And now I had to go through that from the other side. I had to reach out to that owner and now really have that conversation of negotiation of what we were able to do to make that cost fair, since we had to lay out those funds, even though it was really a problem with their house. And instead of just saying, hey, we're just going to divert all of your utilities back to your house and hope it doesn't blow up over the weekend or hope it doesn't start a fire for your tenants, we're going to do something and we're going to come out of pocket and then we're going to settle this on the back end. So what was interesting is even with that, it ended up being another attorney that owns that property. And I thought it was really cool that he, as we were kind of going through these negotiations, actually asked me if I had some connections, if I had some realtors if I had those connections, and if I had the attorney that would be right for us to have an agreement in place based on then his paying for that cost, and then also now having to use a chimney that's on my property for his utilities. So it kind of was interesting to come full circle to say that now this other owner, who actually is an attorney, really saw me as that expert and that person that can solve that problem in order for us to move forward. That was something that reminded me that you really can find a way and a solution to everything, and that good communication really is important. Lesson 2 that I feel like I learned here in property number 17 goes back to a little bit of the way that we run business these days and a little bit of the way that our world is working. Maybe it's just the fact that I live in New York half the year, but we tend to be in a system where we're always hustling, and it seems to be glamorized. The more you do, the busier you can be. And I have to say, I'm really kind of over that. I feel like at the very beginning, there's so many different ways, especially when you have a smaller portfolio. You could be like, okay, I have to go do this. I have to go do this. You have to take care of these things. And as things pop up, you handle them. That's okay. And maybe that works at the beginning. Still not how I would make things work. But in order to be able to grow, in order to be able to scale, you need to put duplicatable processes in place. You need to have systems. This summer of 2025 has hands down been the absolute busiest summer I have ever experienced. I really would like to thank a lot of the systems and processes that I put into place, which is why I still feel as healthy as I do, which is why I still have been able to manage the stress, to manage the craziness, and manage everything that's been going on within this. And the reason for that is because I could not imagine dealing with the problems that we had with the renovation, with the 2 other rehabs we were doing, with the vacancies, with tenants calling, with just their regular maintenance items, on top of this chimney issue that I just explained again. All of those different things, all of those kind of things popping up along the way, I was able to handle because all of the status quo things, the rent collection, the tenant turnover, the tenant maintenance, all of those things were already being handled by systems. They were already things that were functioning like a well-oiled machine. If I was in this very haphazard place of, oh my God, it's now the 30th of the month, I have to drive over to this property and pick up money, or, oh, I got to remind these tenants that they have to pay, or, oh, how am I collecting rent this month? If I had to deal with those things, those baseline factors as a landlord, in addition to all of these other things that now are popping up, and those are just the business things. I'm not even talking about the things going on in personal life. But if I had to now handle those, I don't know how we would have made it through the summer. There were times that I even feel like with what we just had on our plate, with some of the issues that popped up, that was enough to handle. And I am so thankful that we had automations, systems, duplicatable processes, SOPs that were just running smoothly for us, where I didn't have to worry about those things. The money still came in, tenants were happy, problems got solved, and they didn't even have to come on my plate in order to be able to resolve them. So if you're out there feeling like you're stuck in either analysis paralysis, or you just picked up your first, second property and you're feeling like you're spending so much time landlording rather than living, I encourage you now just to create a small system for something and do it now. So pick, I don't know, maybe the way that you track your expenses or that you track your rents coming in or the way that you collect your rent. Maybe you want to put together your tenant screening process. Whatever it is, pick just one small part of your business and say, you know what? Let me sit down this weekend. Let me organize what that looks like, because having that foundation will save you so much time, so many headaches later on. I still think it's interesting every time I see in our Lady Landlords Facebook group, people that I know own multiple properties that are saying, oh, I've found a tenant. Where can I find a lease? We should not be thinking about that when we already found a tenant. If you have multiple properties, we shouldn't be all of a sudden just recreating leases every single time we have a vacancy. We need to have that system down pat. We need to be able to have that in something that's going to be repeatable, because that's what's going to save us. That's what gives us the bandwidth to either scale and grow our portfolio or to just go enjoy our lives. Nobody gets into being a landlord to create another 9-to-5 life for them. We're not looking to recreate jobs. We're looking for freedom. We're looking for time options. We're looking to enjoy the things that we want to be able to do. We're looking for financial stability. We're not looking for headaches. We're not looking to go run around. We're not looking to get phone calls in the middle of the night, on weekends, to answer calls in the evening. That's not what we're here for. So think about one thing that you want to commit to. Put it down in the show notes here so I can help hold you accountable. But commit to just one thing that you're saying, this is what my focus is going to be. We don't have to create a whole system. We don't have to go and revamp all of your landlording. Just pick one small thing that you can do now that will save you time, energy, and stress in the future. Last lesson I'm going to share with you today is something that might be a little bit unexpected here. But to me, mindset is more important in real estate investing than really the skill set of being an investor. I feel like as we're continuing to grow, as we're scaling, taking on more properties, taking on more rehab, the project that we're working on now is one of the biggest rehabs we've done, not just from a scale size, from a square footage perspective, but really from a scope of work, a scope of coordination, a scope of team. But it didn't necessarily always just come down to how to hold a paintbrush, right? It really comes down to that confidence, resilience, being able to stay aligned and keep in front of you and stay anchored with why are we doing this to even begin with versus actually having technical knowledge. It really reminds me that everything in life is figure outable, right? Not saying it's easy, but saying it's absolutely possible. And that's where, once again, being a good problem solver is so important to being a real estate investor. I truly believe that the biggest difference between the woman who never buys even her first rental to the one who owns 17, 20, 50, doesn't matter what it is, it's really not the money. It's the mindset. And I feel like, to be honest, this is not just something I see in real estate. This is something that I feel like I see in happiness in life, with how people deal with disappointment, with how people deal with their circumstances around them, with how any business owner is going to handle something. It has nothing to do with necessarily who's the smartest in the room, who has the most skill, who has even the most money behind them. But it's really that mindset of who really believes that this is possible and who has that confidence and who really knows how to get through the good days and the bad days by being able to move forward. So for that, I want you to really focus and get very clear on what your why is, okay? My why had always been, I want to be able to go travel when I want. I do not want to have to clock in and clock out of a 9-to-5. And I actually liked my last job. I loved my last job when I worked in cancer research. I was very, very happy there. It gave me a lot of freedoms. But you know what? I still actually had to show up. I still had to answer emails Monday through Friday. And listen, it wasn't a huge burden in my life, but it was something that held me back from saying, I want to be able to go and just do this. Last week, if you follow me on Instagram at the Becky Nova, my husband and I just hopped in the car and drove to Canada. We had to redo 25% of the renovations on door number 17. during that time, we had to have a floor specialist come in and redo that floor, the whole first level of this house. And during that time, they said, hey, you can't be in this house. We can't have you walking on the floors. And with me being pregnant, there's no way we can have you around these fumes. So you guys got to leave for a couple of days. We hopped in the car. I said to my husband, I was like, just put in Canada. We'll figure out where we're staying. We'll figure out where we're going by the time we get there. And he drove. I was Googling hotels. I looked it up. I found something through my credit card points, and we went to Niagara Falls. We got to actually have a baby moon, even with all this stress, even with all these things going on. If I had that 9 to 5, I don't know if I would have been able to do that. I don't know if I would have been, maybe I could have taken that day off fine. I would have taken that sick day, but you know what? That work would have been there for me the next day. There also would have been that, oh, really? You got to take a personal day. Really, you have all this other stuff in your life. I didn't want to have to ask permission for where I needed to go. I had things I needed to handle. There were things that I needed. And honestly, my husband and I just needed a couple days off. We needed a couple days to not have to worry about the problems with the house, to not have to think about the different rehabs, think about different tenants. And it was amazing to go. And we were able to turn off our phones and enjoy Niagara Falls, enjoy each other, enjoy our time together. And that, to me, is what real estate is about. So my mindset shift is not just, woohoo, I want to go check out a new country tomorrow. Hey, I want to go fly here. But for me, my why has now shifted more into keeping this baby alive, keeping my stress level low, creating a family environment and a routine, a schedule that's going to work for us to be the type of parents that we would like to be and have the presence in our child's future that we would like, that we both like, not just me, but also what does my husband see as his role as that father? And those are the things that I can keep in front of me. So I want to encourage you, after this episode, sit down for 2 minutes and just write down why this is important to you. What are you looking to get out of this? And that's okay if that changes. It should change over time. You change over time, that changes over time. But understanding the direction that you're going is going to get you into a place where you can say, hey, you know what? Maybe this is scary. Maybe this is new. Maybe I'm going to have to take a leap of faith. But you know what? It's worth it. And I can do it. And I am strong enough to be able to do it. And that will make a huge difference for you. So wherever you are in your journey here, remember that every single door, doesn't matter if it's your first, your 15th, your 50th, but every single door teaches you a way to be able to move forward and will help you with any other future problems that are going to come up as you continue to grow. So thank you very much for tuning in today to my top 3 lessons that I've learned over our last 17 doors. Can't wait to see what happens next, even for myself. But please do make sure to hit that subscribe button so you do not miss the next episode of the Lady Landlords podcast. We release new episodes every single Tuesday. And also, if you enjoyed today's episode, please do make sure to either forward it to a female investor or another woman in your life that you think would get some benefit out of today's episode, or leave us a 5-star review. That always helps other women be able to find our lovely Lady Landlords community. And it's a great way to be able to pay it forward, what you've been learning along the journey. Thanks so much, and I will see you next Tuesday for the next episode of the Lady Landlords podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Lady Landlords podcast. If you're feeling stuck in your real estate investing journey, visit lady-landlord.com to book a 15-minute orientation call with me and see if you're ready to join our mentorship program. Or you can subscribe to our newsletter and join our Facebook group for exclusive real estate investing tips and offers. Invest with confidence. Become a Lady Landlord today.